Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started. And if you want to catch this, you can watch the replay. Okay. Well, I'm not going to show my sourdough starter. That's already done because we're making a new one tonight. Sourdough bread, I'm just going to be upfront. I am not fancy when it comes to baking. I like fancy, and I'm fancy in lots of other areas, but not when it comes to baking. I started my sourdough starter a little bit over a year ago, and I have been baking with it pretty nonstop since. Trying new recipes all the time, bread, crackers, bagels, so many things. There's so many things. Essentially, what you need for sourdough is flour and filtered water. I have used like a bottle of spring water because it's better than, well, some may argue, but it is better than tap water. Tap water typically has chlorine or chloramine, which will not help your starter grow. So, and when I say grow, I don't mean like grow like mold. I mean like become active, okay? So, mason jar, glass bowl, something along those lines. You are going to take equal parts flour and water. This flour I have here is white whole wheat flour. It's just the one I actually was able to grab before the stores, well, not before they closed, but before we were quarantining ourselves to our homes. This one is King Arthur white whole wheat. My recommendation is if you have an all-purpose flour, it is totally fine. You can use it. Any flour you really can use in this case. But if it is bleached or bromated, you're going to want to eventually switch if you can when you get to go and buy some new flour. You can start it with whatever flour you have, but ultimately switch. You could use an all-purpose flour, but nothing that's bleached if you can avoid it. You can use a bread flour, anything along those lines. Okay. Anybody else on? Any questions?
Sandy, Glenn Casper, he says he needs a sword. Does anyone have a sword? I don't know what he needs a sword for.
A sword to stir your starter? Okay. If you have any questions, Matt is on the computer following along, so you can ask him questions and he will relay them to me because I cannot see what you guys are saying. Okay. Empty jar, equal parts flour, filtered water. You are going to just take your flour. I have a chopstick here. I usually use a chopstick or just a regular kitchen spoon, like this. It doesn't matter. I just saw someone use this in a video ages back, and it really does stir well. So, quarter cup of flour. Can you see this clearly? Yeah? Okay. In the video, not here. And a quarter cup of filtered water. This is easy, guys. Not difficult. You're just going to stir until combined. Now, I will say, there are a lot of people who take their sourdough very seriously, and there are incredible bakers out there. If you want to get into the art of sourdough baking, I would highly recommend that you find somebody else. I do turn out beautiful loaves of bread on a regular basis, but this is as much as it's an art, it's really just to feed my family and to feed them as well as I can, and to the maximum health benefits that I can, I guess. Some people weigh their ingredients. You can get a scale out and you can weigh in grams, equal parts. If you are interested in this and you go YouTube or you Google any of the information about sourdough, it's going to be a rabbit trail like everything else out there on the internet. And you're going to see things like words like hydration and leaven and all these different things. If you just follow the Mollie way, it will be the simplest way. And if you have any questions, just ask today or in the coming weeks. Okay, so I'm going to show them. Would you go behind the camera and make sure that when I bring this up, it's not blurry? Okay, it's going to look like this, okay? Can you see it? Okay. You just stirred everything together. You're just going to clean the sides down. And you are going to, I did forget to say this in my post earlier, I happen to have a bunch of cheesecloth here that you can just cut a piece of cheesecloth if you have it. You're going to take your cheesecloth and a ring for your mason jar, and you're going to seal it like this, okay? If you do not have cheesecloth or a mason jar that you're mixing in, it is okay. I have been known to just leave my mason jar lid on loosely, or you can cover it with a tea towel that has some, what do you call this? The pattern of the grain? I don't know. Somebody can correct me. But you want to have a lot of like kind of holes, kind of. You can see through
You
it.
want the fabric to be breathable?
Breathable fabric. There we go. Okay. And you're just going to lay it over and you can just pop it to the side. So this is the very beginning stages of your sourdough starter. What you're going to do is tomorrow, I'm going to show you right now what I do with already mature starter. You're going to pop this to the side in your kitchen, somewhere warm, not cold, okay? You don't want this where a door or window is going to be opening. You don't want to draft. You're going to want some warmer temperatures. Don't put it by the oven, though. I don't mean it has to be hot. And the reason that you want the air is because the theory is that you're collecting natural yeast from the air, okay? You are creating a live culture here when you do this. So it's 8 o'clock. So tomorrow night at 8 p.m., you are going to bring this over and you are going to do what I'm going to do next. There is, I say it's a technique, but it's really nothing fancy. When you have excess starter, actually I forgot to get an extra jar. When you have excess starter, tomorrow you are going to take what you've just mixed tonight and you are going to cut it in half. Meaning, if you have a half a cup now, which you do, you are going to measure out a quarter of a cup of your starter. You're going to take that quarter cup. So you're going to see me do it now with already mature starter. And typically I would not do it this way, but this is the way you have to do it tomorrow. Okay. I'm going to take a quarter of a cup and I'm going to put it in a new jar. Nice new clean jar or bowl, whatever. Just glass is preferable. Okay? If you have plastic, it's fine. Nobody's judging. Okay. Quarter of a cup of the stuff from yesterday, okay? And whatever is left in that jar, I am not a waster, okay, guys? I don't waste things. I try to use whatever I can, but this will be the one time, if you are not a kitchen waster, it will be the one time that you're going to have to be. Whatever is left from that, the other quarter of a cup, you are going to discard. You can, if you have backyard chickens, give it to your chickens. You can toss it in the trash can. You can put it in your garden or your compost, okay? Whatever is left, you're going to discard because you have to feed your starter equal parts. And so if you have a quarter cup of starter, you need a quarter cup of flour and a quarter cup of water. And if you do not discard and you keep growing it every single day, you're going to have cups and cups of it by the end of the week, and it won't have even really had time to become a very mature starter. And so you're going to have just a lot of semi-soured flour and water without really much to do with it. Down the road, you don't have to discard anything. There will be many uses for the extras. But right now, this is what you'll do. Here's your half a cup. Now, tomorrow night, 8 p.m., it's going to be another quarter of a cup. And then you are going to take, I should probably measure it accurately for everyone's sake. You're going to take another quarter of a cup of flour. Whatever your measurement is, you're going to take the exact measurement. Quarter cup of flour, quarter cup of filtered water, and stir. Any comments?
Oh yeah, a whole bunch.
Okay.
I'm detailing it out for them.
Okay. Well, any questions?
So far, not so much.
Okay.
So tomorrow they take a quarter cup of the starter, add a quarter cup of filtered water, a quarter cup of flour,
Yes.
and discard the remainder.
Exactly.
I'm just trying to.
That's fine. Am I confusing anybody? If anybody's confused, ask me now because I can kind of walk you through it. And if you really don't know what happens tomorrow night, you can call me, text me, or Facebook me. And I'll walk you through tomorrow.
Pauline says that my notes are very helpful.
Okay.
Olga
Okay.
says you're looking pretty.
Who does?
Olga.
Thanks, Olga. Okay. All right. So there is my starter again. And every single night at 8 o'clock, you are, well, I guess I should do it there. You are going to cut whatever you have in half. Forget half. Just take a quarter of a cup of your starter from the jar from the night before. Put it in a new bowl or jar and do it equal parts sourdough starter, equal parts flour, and equal parts filtered water. Okay? And you're going to do this for a week. The goal is at the end of your week, you are going to have a bubbling, sour-smelling starter. I actually love, this one has no smell because it's brand new. I love the smell of sourdough. It makes me happy like coffee. Oh, speaking of. Okay. You'll see bubbles start to form. If you forget to feed your starter, it's okay. Just feed it as soon as you think of it, okay? And then from that point, every 24 hours, feed your starter. If you've forgotten it for a few days and you start to notice a liquid growing on it, probably won't because it's so not fermented. What's that? Am I sharing too much information? Just stir it in. The liquid is called hooch, and there's nothing wrong with it. If you're concerned about seeing a mold or something, you can message me with a picture, but the chances of that happening are really slim, unless you didn't have a clean jar to start with. So start with a clean jar, equal parts flour and water the first night, and then from here on for the next 6 days, you're going to do equal parts sourdough starter, equal parts water, equal parts flour.
7 days?
For 7 days total. Mm-hmm. Yep. And it's going to stay out on your counter, breathable. Again, if you don't have any fabric or cheesecloth, you are just going to leave a lid on loosely. If you have a standard sealing jar, this kind here, just kind of don't press it down, and just leave it loosely as well. So just kind of not on all the way, okay? I think that's it. I think that's my video of how to start the sourdough starter. You are welcome to go onto YouTube or even Instagram. People have videos, or Google anything. There's a lot of information about sourdough, but I will tell you the first time that I did this last year, I followed a recipe that wasn't really clear, and so I made a lot of mistakes. And by the end of the first week, and Matt can attest to this, I had a huge amount of mason jars full of sourdough starter. Remember that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was crazy.
It got a little on hand. Sitting on the back, but I had no one to tell me how to do this other than some online videos. I was following a recipe out of a cookbook, which really wasn't helpful, and it was my first time. So what's up?
Nothing. I lost my whole screen. I got it. I'm good.
Anyway, discard. It's only going to happen this week. You're going to be okay. And that's it, I think. Yes? Sound about right?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to put my sourdough to rest. So I get to start a whole new sourdough starter this week. We'll see.
Okay, we're going to try it.
Okay.
There, as Pauline was saying, she's going to try your crackers.
Oh, the crackers. I can actually post that recipe below in the comments. And it's actually a King Arthur recipe from their website. I make alterations to pretty much everything. So you're welcome to follow their...
Couple questions for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Christine is asking, could
Christine
you...
who? Or you don't know.
Bush?
Okay, Bush. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I wasn't using last names. Now it's after for everybody.
Oh,
okay.
Well, it's not...
Could you keep multiplying instead of dumping the extra?
You could, but you don't want to do that while you're starting a brand new starter. You could keep multiplying. It is something that I do now that I have a mature starter. So when you want to make bread, most recipes call for more than a quarter to a half a cup. A lot of recipes call for 1 cup, some 2, some 3, depends what you're making. Pancakes versus bread. When you have a mature starter, actually, hold on, let me show you. I have some recipes I'm going to be making this week. So I have been feeding my starter. It's a big bowl. I've been feeding my starter the past few days because your goal is to multiply it. Okay, so but when you're starting off, by the end of the week, let's say you did you do a half a cup tonight, right? So you have a half a cup in here. Tomorrow you're going to add half a cup, but then the following day you're going to have to add a whole cup, and then the following day it just creates a whole lot of starter that's not very mature, and so you really won't be able to use it. If you want to try, just going to throw this out there, you can use a starter as like its own flapjack without adding anything to it. My husband loves these. We actually all love these. I take the starter, any extra starter that I have that I know I'm not going to use, because I always have a lot in my fridge and I always have a lot on my countertop. I have a cast iron skillet. I just spray it or put a little butter and pour some starter right on the skillet and put everything bagel seasoning on top, some sliced green onions if you want, and serve it with eggs or something. So if you don't want to waste it, you can, but you're going to be using a whole lot of flour to feed your starter over the next week. When you have a mature starter, you get to pop it in the fridge to take breaks from it, so you don't have to worry about using a ton of flour or wasting it, especially right now with how limited supplies are. I just had to buy some flour online in a really big bag because it's very hard to find in stores, and honestly, I'm not going into stores right now. I'm going to stay home and stay healthy. Anyhow, so you could, I would not recommend it. I think it would be a waste of your ingredients. So, go ahead.
Okay, at the end of this, Summit was asking, so at the end of this, you'll discarded 6 jars?
You'll have discarded, essentially, yes. Yes, you're going to have cut in half 6 jars by the end of this. But if you're not overfeeding it and you're just feeding the little amounts every day, you'll have less discard. Some people start with 2 tablespoons of everything.
Not full jars, but yeah.
Not full jars, yes. Well, you can see how little my amount is here, or this one, really. You can start, if you are really limited on resources, start with 2 tablespoons of flour, 2 tablespoons of filtered water. And then tomorrow, when you cut that in half, you're going to have 1 tablespoon to feed. So you can start on a smaller scale. A quarter cup is just kind of the standard. That's really it. So
Glenn Casper was asking, is there a way to slow it down so he doesn't have to feed it so often?
Yes, actually, that is when you have a mature starter, the way that you are going to slow it down is you're going to pop it in the fridge. Refrigeration is fine for this type of fermentation.
But it has to be after the 7 days.
Yes, so here's the other thing. You do not want to pop it in the refrigerator before the 7 days because you actually probably don't even want to pop it in the fridge until after 2 good weeks. I would even say, as long as you're willing to feed it, keep it going until it's mature. And when I say mature, it means bubbly, sour smelling, and it will produce good bread. I can do another video on how to make sure that it can produce good bread, when you know you have a mature starter, how to maintain your starter. I don't do this way anymore with equal parts. I actually just take my starter and I eyeball it, and I'm like, oh look, it's hungry. I'm just gonna throw a few spoonfuls in there, and I take, this has to be fed, so don't worry. And I take some water and I pour it in and I stir. And so my maintaining of this sourdough starter is every night before I go to bed or after I'm done cleaning up after dinner is just kind of when I squeeze this in. And as you can see, it literally takes no time. That's it. And you can see I didn't do equal parts. I had a mature starter that was maybe like a little less than a cup. And then I added a few tablespoons of flour and some water. You can't do this when you're trying to start a sourdough starter. But the maintenance does get easier. The time that you put into it does take less time. So, I mean, I think Matt lost me for a few months when I first started my starter.
Sourdough
It was like
everywhere.
There was sourdough everywhere, yes. And I was in the kitchen as soon as the kids were in bed. I was in the kitchen for hours just figuring it all out by myself. So, anyhow,
They were exploding on counter.
yes,
It was craziness.
I've had an explosion. We've had quite a bit. But now that I've learned, I can teach you guys how not to let that happen.
So the first 7 days are important. You can't slow it down. You got to attend to it 24 hours.
Yes.
As much as possible. After those 7 days.
After the 7 days, you can start trying to make some recipes. I would totally recommend making a pancake. Biscuits. I'm trying to think what else I made when I first started this. The crackers, easy one. Actually, there are a lot of recipes too, Christine. When you were asking about the discard, down the road, you can use all the discard that's unfed that you have extras of. I continuously pop extra in my fridge for later use. You can make pancakes and crackers out of the extra that's not super bubbly and active, just kind of, it's been in your fridge. So there's a lot of versatile uses for sourdough starter. The kind that you want to make nice, big, fluffy loaves of bread or boules or any of these beautiful pieces of bread is going to be an active, bubbly starter that has been fed and out on your counter for at least 6 hours. So that is a whole nother thing though. This is just to learn how to start your own starter. If you do this tonight or within the next few days and you follow these instructions, in a week you will have starter to start using towards making recipes. And it was as simple as mixing flour and water.
In a week, are you going to be available to...
I might be really busy. Yes, in a week we can do a live. I could even do maybe a YouTube video or something where I can link back. I will do a live, I think, and I can actually walk you through a recipe to use your brand new starter. And I can actually use, instead of using my mature stuff, I can use the same starter. Now, sourdough takes time, so you might see me mix something for bread, but I won't be baking that bread until tomorrow night because a true sourdough has to ferment for like 6 to 12 hours. So it's not like you just mix it up and pop it in the oven for a quick bread. That's not how sourdough works. If you do want to know how to do that and make a fast bread and you're running out of supplies and you're like, Mollie, I don't have time for sourdough, I actually have a great recipe. I don't have a link for it, but I can tell you the exact measurements and how to do it. Maybe I'll do another video this week with that. A simple recipe for quick bread. But this is, sourdough takes time. It is a slow process, but it is totally worth it. So
you're not using yeast, you're using the fermentation
natural
to
yeast.
aerate it.
Yes,
Okay.
no yeast, no active dry yeast, no instant yeast.
Can this be done, Christine was asking, can this be done gluten-free?
Okay, so I did have someone ask that question on the post. This particular method cannot be done gluten-free. There is a way to make gluten-free sourdough. It's a lot more extensive. There are a few different people out there who have done it successfully. I have created a gluten-free starter. I never kept up on it, so I ended up discarding it. I fed it to the chickens at some point. But I am not opposed to figuring it out for you because I love to try this stuff anyway. So not this method. You won't be able to follow this exact method and get a gluten-free sourdough starter. But I will find some information for you gluten-free people. But if you're not celiac and you can have some gluten and cross-contamination isn't a huge issue for you, sourdough, there are also other flours, specifically like ancient grains like einkorn and stuff, that are a lot more easily digestible for people who have gluten issues or intolerances, as well as just a standard wheat with a souring process. It does help. Not for everyone. It is a very personal choice, and you know your body the best, so it does make it more easily digestible. That is the whole point of fermenting your food like sourdough. But I will get back to you on the gluten-free version. What's that? Any more?
Just a couple of comments, but
Okay.
no more questions at the moment that I see.
Okay.
All right.
All right. I don't end it yet. I would love if you guys would come back and comment on this video over the next few days. Send me some pictures of your starter and ask me any questions you might have. I could totally send out like an 8 p.m. reminder tomorrow to feed your starter. I know not everyone started theirs tonight though. So feed it once a day. Eventually, there's a whole lot more to learn, honestly. But what?
Have the chickens always been gluten-free? Saturday wanted to know.
My chickens are not gluten-free. My chickens love chicken, so they're cannibals too. Let's see. I think that's really it. I don't think I missed saying anything. I may have overtalked even. Who knows? Okay. I think we're good. Come back. Post pictures, comments, questions. And I look forward to hearing from you. And I will be back live with something else bread-ish over the next few days. So, okay. Bye-bye.